today. It's a full moon, and I'm premenstrual, and I've been just feeling weird all day. I've had bouts of energy and been feeling good at times, but then crashed. I was so tired, and I just kept feeling like weird, and I spent all day on my phone on Instagram, which I try not to do very often because it never makes me feel that great. It's a good distraction for emotions, but it definitely doesn't make me feel any better. In fact, I noticed that if I do that, I actually feel worse within myself. And I've just been like changing my mind a lot. Like I was like, I think I'm gonna have a smoothie, and then I made myself a smoothie, and then I was like, I don't actually want it, so I put it to the side for a while, and then I was like, I'm too hot, so I switched the aircon on, and then I'm like, I don't know if I want the aircon on. And then I was like, I want to paint, and I got my paint brushes and paint out of the van, and then I was just like, I don't want to paint, and then I changed my mind later and I actually did a little bit of painting, and it's just been weird. And while I was painting, I find like painting is such a meditative practice for me, but at the same time it's not a distraction so much because I just paint intuitively, but at the same time it allows me to really feel into myself and just sit with my emotions. And that's really, I feel, all I needed to do today is just sit with my emotions. And I've just been processing while sitting here, and then I put the painting to the side, spilt my water all over the carpet, and just been lying on the floor, just going internally and listening to myself. And I thought I might just record a video showing what it means and explaining what it means to just sit with your emotions now that I've done a bit of processing. Although I feel like I might cry later on. I don't know. I'm just feeling weird. But a lot of people don't really know how to sit with their emotions, and I think it's important to note that you are not your emotions. Emotions are just kind of like, think about it as energy that is in your body and stuff that might just need to bubble up to the surface. You are not those bubbles. You are a body of water, but not the bubbles. Water has bubbles in it, and our job is to really just observe those bubbles as they arise and just allow ourselves to feel into what's coming up and if there's any messages behind them. I think it's also good to know what the purpose of emotions are. And for me, what I've discovered within myself is a few things, and I've written them down. I have noticed, so what purpose do emotions serve? Because sometimes we're just like, what is this? It's just causing me pain and suffering, but we don't really know what they are. And if we don't know what they are and what they're trying to do, then they can just feel like unnecessary suffering sometimes. But once we understand them and what they do for us and why they naturally occur within us, then it gets easier for us to be like, okay, I get it. Now I just need to figure out what they mean for me. For me, it's been messages that can lead to life-changing realizations about my life. So when I was on the wrong path in life, I might have, not felt good in myself, or felt suicidal, or felt depressed. And to me, that was, now that I look back on it, that was a very strong indication that I was just on the wrong path in life. I was disconnected from myself. I was disconnected from my truth and who I really want to be in this life. And I was sacrificing myself and my life for other people's expectations of what I should be. Another thing is certain emotions can be an indication of whether or not you're looking after yourself correctly. You know, are you eating right? How is your gut health? Your gut health affects your mood. If you don't have the right bacteria in your gut, then your mood can go crazy. I once had a parasite in my gut and it just made me wig out so badly. So our gut health is so important for how we're feeling. You know, are you constipated? One of my friends who's studying psychology, she's always like, one of the first things that we should look at when people are feeling different things is, are you constipated? Are you pooping correctly? Because when we're constipated, we can feel really bad in ourselves. So our physical health is really important, and sometimes certain emotions can indicate that we're not looking after ourselves physically. Our gut health, we're exercising, we're drinking lots of clean water, are we breathing lots of fresh air, are we spending time in nature? That's a really good way that our emotions can kind of like dictate whether or not we're looking after ourselves. They can showcase if something needs to change. So if we're feeling different things, negative emotions, it might be an indication that something needs to change and we might need to take a specific action. They can be a informant message that we're disconnected from ourselves, from others, from nature, not meeting our own needs for connection to ourselves, to others, and to nature. So that could be a message that our emotions have for us. They can also come up when we have unhealed trauma sitting in our bodies. They can help lift that trauma out and just help release it. Because our trauma and unprocessed emotions, if something ever happens to us and we don't process it at the time, that energy sits in our bodies and it doesn't release unless we give it time and the ability to come out. And our emotions can be those little levers that bring it out, that help heal us. And they're messages on whether something is right or wrong for us as well. So our emotions are really handy to have. And in our society, we've just repressed them or made them kind of insignificant. But as a matter of fact, they're just essential parts of being human and living this life. And it's really important for us to understand them and what they are, that they're not trying to beat us down in any way. They're not us, they're just messages for us. And if we listen, they can be very useful on our life journey, on our path, listening to ourselves and our intuition and sticking to a path that is right for us. So we need to honor our emotions and be able to process them in healthy ways instead of repressing them. I've been having some memories, like memories come up for me while I've been sitting here processing, and anxiety, just stuff that happened throughout the last year, especially around the ayahuasca. I've been kind of really working on healing my anxiety, and it's so much less than what it was before, but there's still little bubbles that come up of anxiety, and I feel them in my body, and I feel like the stuff that is coming up right now is kind of like just energy that's been sitting in my body in the deepest crevices, just last little bits coming out. And while it might feel uncomfortable now, I know that if I just sit with myself and allow these bubbles to come up to the surface, then they'll eventually pop and they won't be a part of me anymore. And I'll feel much better tomorrow and the next day, or when however long it takes me to process an emotion. I know that after I process that emotion and allow it to bubble up to the surface, then that will make me feel better once I'm on the other side of it. Some emotions take a little bit longer to process, but in our societies we've gotten used to repressing emotions, and it's kind of like when we repress emotions, it's kind of like when you really need a fart but you repress that fart. It gets really fucking uncomfortable, and it just grows bigger and more uncomfortable, and eventually your gut is just like twisting itself because it just needs to fart so bad. That's what happens. And that's what happens when we repress emotions. They turn into an uncomfortable big fart. And so, you know, and they get worse. And eventually, if we repress something for long enough, you know, when you first felt that fart, you could have easily just let it out and been like, and it would have come out and it would have been fine. But if you repress the fart for too long, it grows bigger and bigger and bigger, and it becomes uncomfortable, and eventually it might turn into it might come out at a really inconvenient time, like when you're sitting at dinner with your first date, or when you're sitting around watching a movie with friends, or when you're in a yoga class. And then it's kind of like, oh shit. That's inconvenient and embarrassing and not really what I wanted to happen. So it's the same thing with emotions. If we don't process emotions when they first want to arise, they will fester in our bodies. That energy festers in our bodies, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And that energy eventually can come out in unhealthy ways that don't really serve us, because that energy needs to come out in one shape or form. And we have the option of either allowing it to come out and processing it in a healthy form where, you know, I might just feel uncomfortable for a day, but I might distract myself for a while, but eventually I decide that I want to sit with myself and listen to what's coming up and really feel into what's coming up, and just have a cry or just feel uncomfortable for a little while and just do what needs to be done. But I feel into it and I process it in a healthy way. Or I go talk to someone, like my therapist. I might go talk to my therapist about it, or a good friend, I might give him a call, or I talk to my siblings, or, you know, just talk to people, or, you know, find healthy ways of expressing it. Or the alternative is when we allow something to fester for too long, an emotion to fester for too long, when we don't process our emotions, they might come out in ways where we explode and take those repressed emotions and project them onto others and hurt others and cause traumas and just become toxic to people around us. So that's why it's really important for us to be able to process our emotions and make sure they don't turn into nasty festering farts that come out at not the most appropriate times and aren't really healthy for us or others around us. So yeah, because they eventually, I mean, it's gonna come out. That energy, that fart, it's gonna come out one way or another. and it can be a little where you're kind of like, ooh, okay, or it can be a big inconvenient fart that you might regret later. So yeah, that's processing emotions and why it's important. I know we're not really taught about processing emotions in our cultures and societies. We're taught to repress this, and you know, repression of emotions and traumas obviously hasn't worked because, as you can see by our societies, a lot of people are unhappy and they project their emotions and their stuff out on others. They have outbursts, they're driven by negative emotions and traumas and unprocessed emotions, and there's just a lot of craziness in the world and people hurting each other, or in this case right now, a lot of people committing suicide due to what's happening around the world, because we've been taught not to talk about shit and stuff that happens and mental health, and it's not cool. It's not cool for anyone. But if we recognize that emotions are simply natural for us, they're just part of who we are. They're part of us being human. It's kind of like, they're like our fingers or our palms. They're just natural, or our eyes, or our nose, or our lips, or our tongues, or taste buds. They're as natural as that. We all have them, and if we're lucky enough, and those that don't, they adapt in certain ways. But we all, as humans, we have them. And so why are we repressing something that is completely natural? Would I want to repress my nose and try to hide it because I feel like it's not a normal part of me? Would I want to like hide my eyes because I feel like it's not, you know, something that's not a part of me? That would be weird. So why do we do it with emotions? I don't know. It's weird. That is weird. Why do we try to repress something that is, or shame something that is such a natural part of ourselves? It don't make sense. Yeah. So instead of repressing and shaming a natural part of ourselves, what if we just got curious about these things and accepted them as natural and tried to understand them and work with them instead? For me, that has worked like a charm. I repressed my emotions and my intuition and just natural parts of myself for a very long time. And I used to be extremely emotional. I used to have huge outbursts, and they were more toxic outbursts. Like, there are parts of my life where I feel like I wasn't a very nice person. And sometimes, if I don't know how to process certain things, I can still turn into a, you know, we're only human, I can still turn into a not very nice person. But it's very rare these days. Occasionally I have some outbursts though. And I'm not saying that we should all just be nice all the time. I think that's repressing our darker sides as well, which all serve a purpose too. So I'm not just like, I don't actually like the whole be kind movement. For me, I want to understand, if I'm not being kind, why am I not being kind? Why do I feel the need to act in certain ways? I don't want to just put a blanket over myself saying, just be kind to everyone and repress anything that comes up within yourself. You know, all the dark sides, all of the anger, all of the madness, all of the craziness. Why don't you just repress that and just be kind? I fucking hate that. No, I would prefer to understand myself and why I do certain things, and then work on processing what needs to be processed so I can be at peace with myself and my actions and my behaviors and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's on a side note. But sitting with our emotions, we're not taught about it, and so a lot of people don't really know how to sit with them. What I do after I distract myself all day on Instagram and try not to feel what I'm feeling, I recognize that the reason why I'm wasting my time and just distracting myself with something that isn't making me feel any better. I first recognize that. Then I go, I need to make a conscious decision to go, okay, I need to listen to myself and I need to just have some quiet time with myself. And allow myself to get uncomfortable. I've just been lying here. This is what processing my emotions looks like. It doesn't look like anything from the outside. And there are different ways of processing emotions. You can do so somatically. Sometimes I dance my emotions out. A lot of the time I dance my emotions out. Sometimes I scream in a pillow. Sometimes I punch a pillow. Sometimes I talk to my therapist. Other times I talk to friends. So there's lots of different ways of processing emotions. But when the emotions, like when I feel that external kind of processing won't benefit me, then it's literally just lying in one spot, sitting with myself. At the end of each day, I also check in with myself. When I jump into bed, I put one hand on my heart and another heart on my womb and another hand on my womb, and I just sit with myself. And I just feel into what's happening in my body, feel into what wants to come up, if anything, if there's, you know, any emotions that are arising, anything that feels uncomfortable that I just need to sit with. And I just do that. It's just like being quiet with yourself and listening internally to yourself. I'm trying to figure out how else to explain it. You know how at the doctors they have the stethoscope, and sometimes they allow you to, like, they might put it in your ears as a kid and they allow you to listen to your heart? That's kind of what you're doing with yourself. You're putting in the stethoscope and then listening to your body and just allowing anything to come up, even if it's uncomfortable, and you just listen. And it might become uncomfortable, and you might feel like crying or making a sound or just like hugging yourself or whatever it is that you need to do in a healthy way to just allow that emotion to come out. But you might just need to feel uncomfortable for a little while. Like the anxiety that was coming up for me, I hate feeling anxiety. I know that it serves a purpose as well, because I genuinely don't think that anything that is within us is trying to hurt us. I really believe that everything that's within us comes from a place of love. All parts of us serve a purpose. But it doesn't mean that it's any less uncomfortable. It can be so uncomfortable, and it's just like, oh, why do I have to suffer through this? But the reason that we suffer through certain things is so that eventually we can come out the other end. In life, I've realized that you choose your own poison, right? Suffering is always going to be there. It's a part of life. But we can either, be poured over with poison, or we can choose, a milder poison that's not going to affect us as badly, and drink that consciously. And what I mean by that is, when we don't process our emotions, they will fester and get worse, and then they will form unhealthy patterns in our lives, and then we suffer considerably, and we might not even know why we're suffering. But if we choose to sit with ourselves and process the emotions when they come up, then it's kind of like drinking little doses of poison, little doses of suffering. You suffer for a little bit, or you suffer for a little bit longer, but then once those bubbles bubble up to the surface, we feel better. And then we move on to the next lesson in life. And eventually, those emotions no longer, those patterns and those kind of emotions that affected us around a certain situation don't affect us anymore. Doesn't mean that other situations in life aren't going to affect us, because they will. But it's kind of like you move on to the next level of life, of this game of life, and you deal with the next stage of suffering when it rolls in along your path. But I've also noticed that the more I tune into myself, the more I understand myself, the easier it becomes to process. I'm becoming very good at just sitting with stuff that bubbles up. Instead of making it mean something, I just allow it to feel uncomfortable and then just bubble up to the surface. And then it dissipates. And I feel better afterwards. So, just thought I would make this video, because it might help someone. And I'd love to know what you think about all of this, and if you've managed to sit and process your emotions recently, or if you do so on a regular basis. If so, high five. Welcome to the club. And if you're new to this, let me know how you go if you choose to try it, or if you have any other feedback. I'm super interested in hearing about your journeys and life paths, and how you're getting through life, because it's been a challenging one for a lot of people around the world. So it's good to hear how other people have been coping and what strategies they include in processing emotions and healing traumas and staying true to their path in life and listening to their intuition and stuff like that. So yeah, let me know. And if you like this video, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, comment below, and I'll see you in the next video. Toodaloo.